And I'm welcoming you here to Edloe Glades, our family home near Sweetbriar in Amherst County. It's an 1826 home on what was originally a land grant plantation. This land was given to a family named Christian by the King of England back in the early 1700s. The information is out there, but we don't know a lot about the Christians. We don't know whether they actually ever lived on this place. We believe the first people that actually lived on this place was a family named Cam, C-A-M-M, who would have lived here in the early 1800s for sure. We then know that the family named Morris, M-O-R-R-I-S-S, was the family that lived here most. The name of the home is Edloe Glades, E-D-L-O-E Glades. The back half of that, the second half of that, we always knew what that meant, because the counties that run along the Blue Ridge of Virginia, basically, if you look at them, the western half of each of those counties is in the mountains, and the eastern half of those is in the foothills, the lowlands. And at some point, 1700s, 1800s, whatever, it was the mountains and the glades. That's what they referred to, basically the highlands and the lowlands of these counties. So the road that ran from what's now the town of Amherst, I think it used to be called either Five Oaks or Seven Oaks, getting you down to the river where you could cross the Horse Ford or one of the other fords to end up in the city of Lynchburg, was the Glade Road, or the old Glade Road. Before there was a 29, before there was a 60, this was the road that connected those things. Also ran along the Blue Ridge with what's now, I guess, Route 630 or something. Anyway, the Buffalo Hotel Turnpike, I believe is the name of one of them, the Allwood Road, past the Selvages place. That was the original old road through this county that connected the town of Amherst and points north and west from there. The front half, the Edloe, we really never knew where that came from until just a few years ago. A guy that is a mapaholic like me found an old map, late 1600s, early 1700s, that basically showed that the mountain that we now know of as Tobacco Row at one point was called Edloe, and on that map was simply called E-D-L-O. And now we know the story behind that there was a settlement somewhere down near Richmond, an English settlement, that was raided by Indians at some point, and at least one young man was kidnapped, was taken along, and went back to wherever the Indians were living, so presumably someplace to the west. Well, a posse went out, followed them, caught up with them, and retrieved this young man named Edloe, named that mountain after him where they found him, and our best guess is that the people who built and named this home picked up on that and gave it its name, because the name exists no place else. When you go looking for it and Google it, you'll find a street in Houston, of all places, with that name, and then no place else. So the connections are tenuous, but we think that's the story behind the name of the place. Well, I've been asked about these architectural details, this piece of a column, this base of a column, and over there's a Corinthian capital. For many years, my stepfather was the president of C.L. Lewis Construction Company, and they would from time to time be asked to build a building, and in the process of doing so had to take one down. And he would save a lot of the interesting architectural details, like these three pieces here, a couple that are at my mom's place in Lynchburg, several that are in the old city cemetery in Lynchburg. Make a nice architectural detail like you might have seen in a home like this someplace in England or elsewhere in Europe. They're not as old as the style would indicate, but they're kind of neat pieces to have as part of the place. You had mentioned the trees here, and you know, we're proud of the ones that are still here. Over time, we've lost elms and we've lost chestnuts and have planted new things. We've just put a bunch of new trees in pots that we'll hopefully plant out here one of these days. Of course, the focal point of this garden is the 100-year-old boxwoods, primarily English boxwoods, that are the main part of this garden, and then surrounding the outside of it are both a mix of small English boxwoods and the larger American boxwoods. You can see they're getting some new green on them this year. This should be a very good year for the boxwoods. And a great spot to have the ceremony part of a wedding. We'll hope for good weather so we don't have to put a tent out. But it's a beautiful spot. We'll see it from inside the house here in a bit. We'd like to see Edloe Glades become a place where people can begin their married lives, to have some weddings out here, possibly some other kinds of corporate retreats, that kind of thing. There have been, in our family anyway, there have been 3 weddings out here. And in the intervening years, 3 different generations of my family have lived in this home. There's no one now that wants to live in the home. The family still lives on the place, but not in the big house. So it's too beautiful to let it just sit there. And we'd like to have just a handful of very nice weddings here. We don't expect this to be entry-level wedding, so to speak. This is going to be a place where people are going to come and have an elegant affair, though not necessarily an expensive affair. That's our goal, to have maybe as many as 12 weddings a year out here. The space behind us has been the scene of one of those weddings. With or without a tent, we think that upwards of 150 people could probably sit there for the ceremonies. And we'll see on the other side of the house what we call the soccer field, which is big enough for a big tent and for there to be a reception for an even larger group of people.